Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, February 2nd, Groundhog Day. So if you happen to bump into Ned Ryerson, please do not purchase any insurance from him today. It is an absolute scam. We all know that. We've seen that film. And speaking of films, we got a fun one today, folks. A lot of very interesting news to cover. Um, Melania's film didn't do so great in terms of what it cost versus what it brought in. The Trump family out there spreading lies about how awesome it was and everybody loves it. We've got to talk about what happened with the Epstein files dump on Friday. A lot of very interesting stuff in there. Some insanely, amazingly good news out of the state of Texas. Kind of gives me a little bit of hope. And of course, Donald Trump is threatening to sue Trevor Noah because of a joke that he made at the Grammys last night. So we've got a lot of interesting slash funny slash very serious slash weird things to discuss in today's show. First and foremost here, I want to just thank everybody for being here, showing up. It's a Monday, it's early, but we're getting it done, right? The news doesn't stop, and neither do we. Also love the fact I've already seen the Netherlands, UK, Denmark, Norway, Canada, Mexico, the UK. We're just repping, a big portion of the world right now in the chat, and I love that so much. Let's talk about the Melania film, because Donald Trump wants us to believe something that is not. As everybody knows, of course, Melania, the documentary, co-produced by Melania herself, debuted this past Friday. Well, we've got the box office receipts, folks, and it pulled in a staggering $8 million on a $75 million budget. $8 million. And of course, by the way, that $75 million budget was $40 million to make the stupid thing, $35 million in marketing, which blows my mind that they would even spend $35 million, almost as much as the production costs, just to market this thing. And of course, it failed. Now, before we get into how Donald responded and, of course, Melania, it is important to point out that documentary films do not typically do well at the box office. A reporter came out and said that, hey, this is technically the highest grossing documentary film in the last 10 years. The Trump family took that and ran with it, not realizing that that's basically like saying this was the biggest turd that's hit the toilet in a decade. Yeah, that means something, but it doesn't matter. Okay, we're not being inundated with just groundbreaking documentary films in recent years. And let's be honest, there are still a lot of really odd MAGA freaks out there who, of course, want to go see this. But $8 million on an opening weekend, not exactly something to write home about. Nevertheless, Donald Trump got on Truth Social and said, "Blockbuster," in all caps. Melania Trump film on track for best opening weekend of any documentary in the last 10 years. Again, it's still a turd. It's the biggest turd nobody wanted to see. Melania, on the other hand, wrote this on social media. Melania, the film, #1 highest opening in 10 years, doc, loved by all, a cinema score. Loved by all, right? Except, of course, the critics. So right before I started talking here, I got on Rotten Tomatoes because I wanted to verify that things hadn't changed with it. So it still has a 10% rotten score among critics. So not doing well, right? The people who watch films professionally and review them hated it. But the audience score, 99%. 99% of the people that actually flopped down their hard-earned money to watch this were like, I loved it. It was great. I even took my MAGA hat off and wept at one point because it's just so beautiful. I couldn't stand it. That Melania, I love her so much. Yeah, that's not surprising. The only people that would pay to see this are the people who are already diehard fans of these folks. So yeah, they're going to get on there and give it good reviews to try to skew it. It's the opposite of review bombing, right? They're not trying to tank a movie score. They're trying to artificially inflate it because they understand that Trump cares, both Melania and Donald. So that's what's happening with that. So I don't want anybody to look at the Rotten Tomatoes score of the audience and be like, well, this is like the most loved movie ever, because it's not. And $8 million off a $75 million budget, $35 million in marketing is not a good return. And honestly, I kind of feel like the studio knew that going into this. We're not exactly in the, hardcore movie time of year, right? This is not a summer blockbuster. This part of the year is typically where movies go to die. It's where when the studio has something they have to put out, but they know it's probably not going to do so well and it'll look worse if we put it up against the blockbusters, they drop it at this time of year. So they did that knowing that it's not competing with films that are just going to explode. And this is what they got as a result of that. It was basically the only choice for people if you wanted to get out of the cold and go to the movies this weekend. So when you factor all that in, it's pretty obvious this whole thing was just a massive, hilarious flop from the beginning. And my favorite thing about it, of course, is the fact that the Trump family just seems to be in denial about it. Like, their brains have completely broken. They're no longer in touch with reality, not that they really were to begin with, over this. They want you to falsely believe that this is the greatest film ever made. This is what the cinema is for. It's a giant steaming pile of garbage. And it's hilarious that it even made $8 million this past weekend. I've had a lot of super chats come through. Let me address these. Jesse Ventura did an interview with Canada's CBC News yesterday and hinted that he might run for Senate since Amy Klobuchar is running for governor. Interesting development if it actually happens. Ventura went off the deep end. I don't think that would be a good idea at all. He got super into the conspiracy realm and all of that, so I'm not a big fan. I want, not somebody that might have a screw or two loose, but either way. V-Man says, I haven't seen this much coping since the Snyder fanboys were seething that the last Superman movie was a success. I still haven't seen that, but I've heard really good things, even from people who are not into comic book movies, and I do need to watch that. The Great Gatsby says, I saw Silent Hill this weekend, and as much as a piece of that movie was compared to the game, I'm sure it was 10 times better than her movie. There's a lot of movies that I imagine are probably better than Melania. Troll 2 stands out. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. I watched it as a kid before it became like a thing. But yeah, I'm sure that's better. It is hilarious though. More comments here. They could have fed and housed every homeless person in this country with the money flowing from this horror show. That is a good way to look at it. And it really, the room. No, I mean, that really is, the studio that did this was Amazon MGM. So you got your MGM money, not just from the movies and all of that. You also have MGM owns the casinos. You have Amazon, which has like all the money in the world. They could have done so many great things. But what they wanted to do was suck up to the Trump family. And this is the end result. So they basically dug a big pit, put $75 million in it, and lit it on fire, and wouldn't even let anybody get close enough to get warmth from the fire during this horrific cold spell across the country. No, just lit it on fire, made everybody stay away, breathe in the fumes, but get none of the heat from it. We don't have that garbage movie here in the Netherlands. I envy you for so very many reasons. That's just one of them, but I definitely envy you for that. Super chat here from Pearls Before Wine. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I do want to address real quick while I am kind of going through some comments. I know on Friday, towards the end, a bunch of super chats came in, and I didn't have time. I didn't go through them. I do want to apologize for that again. I try to not ever ignore any super chats that come through. So my apologies for that. I will do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen again. A comment here from ATM873 says, I hope you like the Michael trailer when you see it. R.I.P. Michael Jackson. His song, They Don't Care About Us, is more relevant now than ever. Yeah, I have not seen that trailer. I love movie trailers. I really do. That's one of my go-to things on YouTube, is just scrolling through and watching even old movie trailers. The hype that surrounds it, even if it's a bad movie, but a good trailer, it's a fun experience. And it also makes going to the movies really boring for me because I've already seen all the trailers, and a lot of them I don't care to see again. I've seen videos of people saying it was good and packed. Lies. I have not seen any of those videos. The critics, like I said, have savaged this film. I have seen videos of people going into empty theaters, but I have not, and this is coming from a dude who's scrolling through reels, half the day. I have not seen any videos of people in packed theaters. So based on the ticket sales, I don't see how that is possible. And the only reason this is like the highest grossing documentary film is because the Taylor Swift, and this is so weird, but the Taylor Swift Eras Tour movie was not considered a documentary. It was considered a concert film instead, even though it was a documentary. That one pulled in 180 million. Or was it 280? I don't know. I had looked it up right before I did this. But anyway, yeah, if they had classified Taylor Swift Eras Tour movie differently, Melania would not be the top one of the last 10 years. I don't know how or why they classify certain things a certain way in that regard, because it was definitely a documentary, but wasn't classified as such. So there you go. Yeah, sometimes I see live streamers miss super chats because they're multitasking, playing games, and replying comments. Yeah, I was at the end. I was tired. I was exhausted. I had already done way more segments that day than I had planned. So I have no excuse other than my own, laziness. Let's move on. On Friday, we got 3.5 million pages of Epstein documents. There were over 5,300 mentions of the name Donald Trump in that Friday batch of Epstein documents. Over 5,000 mentions of Donald Trump, including, by the way, Steve Bannon saying that the dude's insane, basically, and should be removed using the 25th Amendment during his first term in office, while Bannon was celebrating him every day, a guy that still celebrates him every day. But that's a topic for a different time. What's hilarious, the whole thing is disgusting. Do not get me wrong. I'm not trying to make light of any of it. The victims deserve justice, and I still fear that they will never get justice. Now, but it was still funny to see Elon Musk emailing Jeff Epstein, begging for an invite to his island, which of course runs completely contrary to what Elon Musk had said just less than a year ago, that Epstein asked me to go to his island and I refused. Well, buddy, now we know the truth. You emailed Jeff, begged him to come to his island, actually saying, where is that? I gotta read it because it is so funny. What day/night will be the wildest party on our island? So you knew that wild parties were going on the island, and you wanted to get your creepy butt over there as quickly as possible. But even with all the creepy, horrible things happening on that island, even Jeff Epstein was like, hey, make this guy go away. He's a little too creepy and weird even for me. And I've got a dentist office in my weird little, temple on this island that I use to traffic women. But this guy, he gives me the creeps. I mean, if Jeffrey Epstein is telling people, yeah, like that guy's definitely weird. I mean, come on. That's like the biggest insult I think any human being could get. And it's also a testament to just how weird and creepy and desperate for friends and attention from people Elon Musk is. My conclusion from this, and obviously a lot of us thought this for a long time, Elon Musk did not grow up with friends. Elon Musk has never had a genuine, actual friend. He's never had a real buddy where if you're in a jam, even if it's 3 a.m., you can call that person. They're going to pick up and they're going to be wherever you are in 10 minutes to help you out because you're their friend and they love you and they care about you. Elon Musk has never had that. And that really is a sad, horrible way to go through life. And it creates whatever this thing is now that Elon Musk is. When you lack real, true, genuine relationships, you become this disturbing, disgusting freak, which is exactly what has happened to Musk. Steve Tisch, owner of the New York Giants, not only in the documents, but repeatedly conversations with Jeffrey Epstein, asking him, do you have anybody in New York for me to meet? Are they, what was it? How did he phrase that? Working girl, pro or civilian? Pro or civilian? The co-owner of the New York Giants asked Jeffrey Epstein, and it doesn't take a whole lot to figure out what he's probably referring to. Now, the reason I think this part, with Steve Tisch, again, co-owner of the New York Giants, is such a big deal is because years ago, I believe it was like 2017, 2018, Richardson, Bill, I forget his first name. I don't think it was Bill, but Richardson, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, was forced by the NFL to sell the team effectively because he had been accused of sexual misconduct, sexual harassment by female staffers. And the NFL at the time, 2017, 2018, was like, no, this cannot stand. You guys sell the damn team, get the hell out of the NFL. So what's the NFL's reaction going to be about Steve Tisch? Is he going to have to sell his share of the Giants? I think he should. I think they should force him out. I'm kind of shocked that is not already a part of the conversation to force this a-hole out of the NFL for good. The Mara family owns part of the New York Giants. Why are they not doing that? Why are they not forcing him out? I think that's a question that the Mara family needs to answer. Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, went down and had lunch on the island, and his wife accepted it very enthusiastically. And to make it even more creepy, they brought their kids. They brought their kids with them to Jeffrey Epstein's island. Now, there's a lot of places in the United States, all over the world, where it's probably not a good idea to bring your kids, right? But I can't think of a worse place on planet Earth than Epstein's Island to bring your children. But they did. And of course, there were plenty of other conversations between Lutnick and Epstein over the years. They were very close, apparently. And Lutnick, just like Elon Musk, is yet another guy who had adamantly denied knowing this guy, hanging out with him, talking to him. Basically, if anybody has ever come out repeatedly and insisted they never knew this guy, I never hung out with him, I never did anything, you can pretty much rest assured they're going to be in the files. It's one of those, I believe thou doth protest too much, because the people making the biggest stink, swearing up and down they weren't involved in any of it, tend to be the people that we're seeing all over these damn documents, which of course is why they're trying to keep them all hidden. And as I mentioned, there were over 5,300 mentions of Donald Trump, not necessarily communications with him, but about him one way or another. There's also, by the way, I do want to talk about this for a second. There was a story floating around, and I had seen it in reels. I've seen people posting on social media that Epstein and Trump had like over 4,000 wire transfers between each other. That is not true. Okay, so if anybody is out there thinking that let's live in reality, right? No, there were that many wire transfers from Epstein to people, but it was not between him and Trump. So I do want to make that abundantly clear, so nobody walks around spreading that, because it takes away from the truth of the rest of it. And honestly, that's one of those things that wouldn't surprise me if right-wingers put it out there knowing it was fake, just to make the left look stupid when they shared it. So do not share that. Do not believe it, because that's not in there. It did not happen that we know of. A bunch of super chats I want to talk about here real quick. I believe it starts here. Hey, Farron, I thought centrist Dems told us we can't run lefties in red country. What are they going to say now that an ex-union leader has won a state Senate seat in red country as a super lefty? They're probably still going to say the same thing, unfortunately, and act like, well, that was a fluke. Okay, well, what about New York City? Well, that was a fluke. Okay, but what about all these other people? Fluke, 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 fluke. Yeah. They're not going to stop because they're horrible, but I am going to get to that story here very shortly. This document release really surprised me, considering the fight the DOJ has put up recently. I agree. I didn't think we were going to get 3.5 million. There's still a lot more. There's still a ton of it redacted. And Todd Blanche, Deputy Attorney General, basically said in an interview this weekend that, no, we're done. Yeah, we're just going to be done. He said the review is over. And this is it. So this may be the last we get, which of course is a violation of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. I can't believe DOJ released unredacted of Epstein children victims in the buffs. Yeah, you would think, right? They're like, well, we got to protect the victims. That's why this is taking so long. And then they don't protect the victims at all. So obviously another lie from this administration, totally busted. Off topic, as ICE hates the Gestapo title, how about naming them Trump's twats? If you feel like it, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not even going to tell you it's a bad idea. If that's what you want to call it, go ahead. We need to undo a lot of these wealth protections. I agree 100%. Legally, socially. What happened to making people pariahs, right? Bring back the good old days of blacklisting folks, right? Cancel culture. Because there's a lot of people in these files that need to be canceled. And I'm not talking about like a Louis C.K. type cancel or any of these other folks who go on comedy tours and are like, I'm canceled. And then you make millions and millions of dollars. I mean, a real, genuine, you'll never work in this town again. What happened to those days? We need to bring that back because genuinely, there's a comment. Dear Lord, who's not in the files? Honestly, for the DOJ, that would be a better thing right now. Just go ahead and release a list of names of people you didn't find in the files. And if your name is not on that list, then of course we assume you are in the files. Yo Rocky says, last week at my Canadian Cineplex, a trailer for Melania played. I and the girl next to me said, what the fuck is this? Trump came on and the girl said she lost her appetite. Then the audience booed. I love that. Audience booed. It's funny because they're booing and nobody associated with the film or the Trump family can even hear it. But it's such that visceral reaction that even though you know the people involved are not going to be affected by it, you still do it anyway. That's how vile that man and his family are. All right, let's move on. We're still talking Epstein for a minute. But as I mentioned, Steve Bannon's to the point where there are countless communications between these folks in those Epstein files. But there is one communication between Epstein and Steve Bannon that really stuck out. Because this conversation, text messages between Bannon and Epstein told Bannon that it seems like Donald Trump is borderline. And I don't know if he's meaning like, he's borderline, he's about to jump over the edge and be totally crazy, or if he literally means borderline personality disorder. But Steve Bannon responded and said, I think it's beyond borderline. 25th Amendment. Steve Bannon, who is now and has always been Donald Trump's, and these messages, by the way, were from 2018, December 31st, 2018, to be exact. Even Steve Bannon was like, yeah, 25th Amendment. 25th Amendment. 7 years ago. 7 years ago, Steve Bannon, Donald Trump's closest friend, said 25th Amendment. And yet here we are, over half a decade later, with that same lunatic in the Oval Office, crazier than ever, more demented than ever. Steve Bannon still out there every day insisting that Trump is great and wonderful, and of course telling us he's gonna serve a third term in office. So what happened, Steve Bannon? How did Trump go 7 years ago from being totally crazy, needs to be removed, to being totally sane and can absolutely do the job today? Typically, people that are, crazy don't get uncrazy, right? Unless it's a drug-induced, problem or something that they can seek psychological help for. But Trump hasn't sought psychological help. Okay, he has not gone to therapy. He has not done anything to improve his mental state in these last 7 years. So why are you out there promoting him every single day? When you yourself are admitting in these private text messages with one of the worst human beings of this generation, telling him it's beyond borderline, 25th Amendment. I think Steve Bannon's got some answers he needs to deliver to the public. I would also like to know why Bannon was texting with Jeffrey Epstein during this time at all, even up to, I think it was like 5 or 6 days before Epstein was finally arrested the second time. Because at this point, when Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein are texting back and forth, being buddies. At one point, Bannon's like, hey, I'm in France. Can you send your plane to pick me up? Epstein had already served his initial, very cushy prison sentence. So there was no secret anymore about what Epstein was, what he did, and what he enjoyed. But it was after all of that became public that he became friends with Steve Bannon. So Steve Bannon made the conscious choice to be friends with this guy, knowing everything he knew about what he did. And I think that, of course, is also a major point that needs to be discussed, and Steve Bannon needs to answer some questions about that. His audience is one of the biggest groups of people demanding the full release. Epstein's a monster. He's a monster that your guy was apparently super close friends with, close enough to where he texted him, was like, dude, send your plane. I'm in France. Come get me. Yeah. I think Steve Bannon's audience needs to rethink probably everything about their entire lives at this point. Super chat here from Paula Trigg says, music gets me through a lot. Fake by Five Finger Death Punch is my middle finger to this regime. Are You Ready by Disturbed is my I'm So Much Stronger Than You anthem. Both songs have been quite... I love that. Music is a big part of my life. It can help you get through so very many things in life, no matter what it is, right? Breakups, obviously, happy times. Sometimes, like back in the day, I don't do this as much anymore because it's a little more difficult. I used to, I'm just going to date me a little bit here. I'd go download a bunch of songs, create a new CD, get in my car, and I would just literally drive for like 2 hours listening to music. You know, nothing productive, no destination. I didn't need to go anywhere, but nothing back in the day when I was in my 20s made me happier than just getting in the car, listening to music, and just driving for, again, hours at times. One time I actually ended up from where I was in Pensacola all the way past Tallahassee because I was just going and jamming in the middle of the day and then realized like, oh shit, I'm almost 4 hours from home. But you get lost in it. So I appreciate your comments about music, and I love it too. Let's move on. We're not even halfway through with the stories for today, folks. We got a lot to cover because we have an update about the FBI raid on the election facility in Fulton County, Georgia. It turns out that the leader of the FBI field office in Atlanta was not happy about this raid. And in fact, he asked the FBI, why are we doing this? Right? Like, what's going on? This doesn't seem right or normal. So that man, Paul Brown, was fired, was removed as the leader of the FBI field office in Atlanta for having the audacity to raise his hand and be like, hold up, what? This, come on. Why are we doing this? Oh, that's a great question. You're fired. If that doesn't tell you that all of this is just a total farce, then I don't know what does. Here's the thing about the FBI, okay? The FBI is not the United States military. In the United States military, you're given orders. If you do not follow those orders, you risk a court-martial, you risk, severe punishment, demotions, discharge, whatever. You basically have to follow any lawful order. The FBI is not that. So he doesn't have to follow these orders. And when Kash Patel, his FBI, thought, hey, hold up, here's a guy that clearly is acting like he's not going to follow our orders, what do we do? The answer was, get rid of him. Get him out of here. I don't want to see his face again. Because we only want people that will blindly follow orders no matter how ridiculous or potentially illegal they are. Which is why, again, as I mentioned the other day, they had to get the warrant signed not by a U.S. attorney in the state of Georgia. They went all the way over to Missouri to get a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney to sign that search warrant. I mean, you probably didn't even have to go all the way to Missouri. You could have just gone right next door to Alabama, maybe up to South Carolina. You probably would have found one there too. But no. We wanted to be super sure, so we went all the way to Missouri to go and get this warrant signed. And then we fired the FBI field office leader because he gave us a little bit of very mild pushback by asking, why are we even doing this? This doesn't seem right. Whatever they took, and they took a lot. I think it was 700 boxes. 700 boxes related to the 2020 general election. They're going to fabricate, they're going to phony up, and they're going to fake. They're going to come out with evidence to prove what they're telling us. But that evidence isn't going to be real. And I think that obviously was the big concern of this FBI agent. Not only we shouldn't be doing this because this is stupid, but I think the FBI leader was like, I don't trust you guys. Why is Tulsi Gabbard here? This isn't an international incident. Like, what the hell is going on? So anybody who can think independently has no place in Donald Trump's government. So Mr. Paul Brown no longer in his position. Let's get some comments. They're going to lie. They always lie. I agree. Everything Diaper Donnie touches dies. How did Melania make $8 million when all the theaters seem to have just 5 people in attendance, 3 of which were journalists? Well, the journalists still have to pay for the most part. I do have questions about that myself, because I've seen photos, I've seen videos of the people in the theaters, and it's just, where'd the $8 million come from? I mean, unless they were selling tickets for $1 million a piece, it just doesn't seem right. Although maybe it was $500,000 a piece. Maybe 16 people saw it. I don't know. I wasn't there. Melania will win the Razzies Award next year. Bet on that. Oh, that is a good prediction. Regardless of how I think regardless of how the film had done, they were probably already planning to give her the Razzie for the worst film anyway. But given how poorly it is, she's a shoo-in now. It's definitely going to happen. I love that. Don't make fun of the Melania movie if you bought the ticket. Well, a lot of people did it to do videos on social media, like, nobody's here, look at this, which is kind of ironic, because it's like, yeah, but you still bought a ticket. You still contributed to that $8 million. Depending on where you are, what time of day you went, you paid $8 for a ticket, you paid $22 for a ticket, or somewhere in between. I don't know. It's been a while since I've been to the theaters. But in the movie theater we have here in my tiny little town is super small and cheap. So the tickets are not expensive. But I've been to movie theaters in other cities and places of the country. They can be super crazy expensive. Lauren Tamara says, will there be any live shows in the near future about how bad of a military leader Trump really is? Sun Tzu is calling us failures from beyond the grave. I hadn't necessarily thought of that. It is definitely something I think we probably could, include in one. Sure. V-Man says, Farron, legendary UK Labour leader Clement Attlee once said of his rivals, the Conservatives, they belong to 2 classes only, those who are born rich and those who have achieved riches. Guy was right. And the problem is that we have in America, we have the same conservative class, except we don't have those who were born rich and those who achieved riches. We have those who were born rich and those who swear up and down that someday they're going to be rich, right? I didn't finish high school and I dig holes for a living in my neighbor's yard, but I'm definitely going to be a millionaire one day. And they do genuinely believe that. I remember many years ago having to pull research for a paper, and it was 67%. It's 64 or 67. Maybe I just have 6, 7 in my brain. 64 or 67% of Americans, when polled, said, yes, I firmly believe that one day I am going to be a millionaire. So they do believe it. That's why they're like, no, we can't tax millionaires. That is going to be me someday. Y'all just wait and see. These holes I'm digging are going to pay off. No offense to anybody that digs holes for a living. It is necessary work, but it's not work that's going to make you a millionaire. Civil War A24 ain't a manual, LOL. I don't think they understand that. I think they really think this is totally what we're supposed to do. All right, let's talk about the good news, okay? Because the bad news of the day was obviously Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow 6 more weeks of winter. If you're in South Florida, then maybe that means 6 more weeks of iguanas falling on your head. But good news over the weekend, folks. A Democrat in the state of Texas won a special election on Saturday. Democrat by the name of Taylor Remmett. In a deep, deep red county, as the Texas Tribune described it, won. He won a state Senate seat in a deep red district that a year ago, year and a half ago, Donald Trump carried by 17 points. So it's not like, it's a deep red district that's a +3 Republican. It was a +17 Republican district. And a Democrat, as it was, pointed out, former labor union leader, can't get more like working class than that, which I love to see, defeated a Republican. The Democrat was outspent by millions of dollars. This Republican at one point, by the way, even had Miriam Adelson dump in $3.5 million to her last campaign. So it's a well-known Republican who got her ass kicked. I talk about this every election year because I've seen it every election year for more than 20 years that I've been working in progressive media. Every election year, we see stories. This will be the year that Texas turns blue. Oh, it's going to happen. All the signs are pointing to Texas turning blue. And then, of course, it never happens. I've never fallen for that nonsense. A couple times I got close, right? I'm not going to lie. But if ever there was going to be a year where Texas had the chance to turn blue, kind of feels like it might be this year. I mean, if Taylor Remmett had won, or Remmett, however you pronounce that, my apologies, if he had won a swing district, I wouldn't even be talking about it. But this was a deep red R+17 district. And he trounced his opponent 57% to 43%. It's not even like he won by 1 or 2 points. He flipped it from an R+17 to a D+14. That is a 31-point flip in less than a year and a half. So that seems significant. That seems terrifying if you're a Republican. And Republicans are already downplaying it. Republicans have already come out and said, well, yeah, I mean, special elections are different. No, they're not. We saw this exact same thing happen in special elections, though certainly not to this degree, during the first 2 years of Trump's first term. He would come out, give it a candidate the kiss of death with his endorsement. They'd lose spectacularly in a race that they otherwise would have won, and the Democrat wins. And then we get to the midterms in 2018, and we get the blue wave. I do believe we are looking at a blue wave this year. Whether or not Texas is a part of it, I don't know. I'm not willing to say, yes, Texas is turning blue, or no, it's staying red. I think there's so much unpredictable right now. So I'm not going to be the prognosticator. I'm just going to say I'm liking the trends. But I will say with a certain level of confidence, we are going to see a blue wave this year that was bigger than what we saw in 2018. All of the evidence points to that. Donald Trump is the most disliked person to serve as president of the United States in my lifetime. That is not an exaggeration. That is not hyperbole. That is not my opinion of him. That is the entire public's opinion of him. A higher disapproval rating than any president in my 42, soon to be 43 years on this planet. Nobody has ever achieved that. He's never achieved that even in his first term during COVID. This man is so unpopular that he is driving deep red areas of Texas to vote for a Democrat. Republicans should probably be collectively pissing their pants right now. A super chat from the MRE says, what's even more telling is the trend is holding. Some Republicans are cross-ballot voting for Democrats and independents are likewise doing the same. Yet everything looks promising. We're not seeing it taper off. We're seeing it increase. I mean, the Democratic victories we've seen, not just this weekend in Texas. We have seen them in areas of Mississippi. We have seen them in areas of the North that Republicans held for over 100 years. Flipped to Democrat for the first time in over a century. We see it in Georgia. We saw it in Alabama. And I got to tell you, as somebody that does live down here in the American South, this is Trump country for the most part, or at least it was. I don't see the bumper stickers anymore. I don't see the MAGA hats every time I leave my house. It was great driving around town on a Saturday with my wife, seeing the No Kings protesters, the ICE protesters in this area. There were tons of them. It was amazing. So things are changing in the country, and they're changing in a way that I don't think Republicans are happy with. I can't imagine they'd be happy with them. So I'm optimistic, and I'm typically not an optimistic person. So it's a weird feeling for me. Somebody says, has it become a lot less MAGA hat publicly? Yes. Yes, it absolutely has. I can go out and about, and we did on Saturday. I went to like 5 or 6 different places, including the mall. Not one. Not a single one. No Trump merch either anymore that I could see. So that's pretty remarkable. Last story. Sunday night, of course, was the Grammys. I didn't know that actually until this morning, but Sunday night, whatever it was, Grammys. Trevor Noah hosted the Grammys this year, former host of The Daily Show, comedian. And Trevor Noah, after Billie Eilish won Album of the Year, made a joke about Donald Trump. And the joke, touched on Epstein. Joke was this. Congratulations, Billie Eilish. Wow, that's a Grammy that every artist wants, almost as much as Trump wants Greenland, which makes sense because since Epstein's gone, he needs a new island to hang out with Bill Clinton. Now, in that joke, he did not accuse anybody of doing anything other than hanging out on an island. That's not defamatory in any way. That's just saying they need a new island. Yes, he mentioned Epstein, sure, but it's also a joke, which gives it a hell of a lot of legal cover. But Donald Trump, the thinnest skinned person to ever serve as president of the United States, got his panties in a twist and threatened to sue Trevor Noah for making a joke while hosting an award show. Here is what Trump put on social media. Noah said incorrectly about me that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton spent time on Epstein Island. Wrong! I can't speak for Bill, but I have never been to Epstein Island, nor anywhere close, and until tonight's false and defamatory statement, have never been accused of being there, not even by the fake news media. Noah, a total loser, better get his facts straight and then get them straight fast. It looks like I'll be sending my lawyers to sue this poor, pathetic, talentless dope of an MC and suing him for plenty of money. Ask little George Slapadopoulos and others how that all worked out. Also, ask CBS. Get ready, Noah. I'm going to have some fun with you. Do it. Sue him. I want that to happen. I want Trevor Noah to get sued for defamation by Donald Trump. Not because I hate Trevor Noah and I want him to pay. No. Trevor Noah is going to win this. And I want him to. And then, once he wins, I want him to turn around, do a countersuit, an anti-slap suit, and hit Donald Trump for $40 million. Why $40 million? I don't know. It's the number that just popped into my head when I said it. But $40 million for trying to restrict your rights. That's what I want to happen. And all those other lawsuits that Donald Trump mentioned, none of those were because he won. It's because those organizations, those outlets that he sued were scared because he became president again and had the authority, not necessarily legally, but the ability to punish them. And he threatened to punish them. So they caved. They gave him millions of dollars, even though he was asking for tens of billions of dollars. And he thinks he won. It's the proverbial pigeon, right? Never play chess with a pigeon because they're going to kick all the pieces down, shit all over the board, then strut around like they won. And that's what Trump is. He's the pigeon playing chess. He's crapped all over the board. He's acting like he won, but he didn't. Those groups caved through fear. Any other defamation lawsuit that Donald Trump has brought or faced himself that's actually gone to trial, he hasn't prevailed. He hasn't. In any of them. So I hope he sues Trevor Noah. And I hope Trevor Noah uses this as an opportunity to not only take tens of millions of dollars away from Donald Trump, but also to publicly humiliate him in a way that only somebody can do in court. So please sue him, because that would be the funniest thing that Trevor Noah has ever done. And he's a funny guy. And I'm sure he would love that opportunity. But let's also take a second to understand this. What a bitch, right? Can we just say that? Like, what a whiny, pissy little diaper baby. Like, you can't take a joke, which, by the way, is protected speech, satire, all of that, fully protected, so Trump has no chance of winning a lawsuit. But you couldn't just not say anything. You had to go out there, throw your little 3-year-old style temper tantrum for the world to see because you're such a little baby bitch, because you have such thin skin, because you're so worried that people were laughing at me. Now everybody has to pay. Go to fucking therapy, dude. Seriously. Find a psychologist or psychiatrist. I think you need the full-blown PhD type. And go talk to them. Go work through your issues. Why does it bother you so much when someone makes fun of you? Why can you not get over it? Why can you not ignore it? What happened in your life to break you so badly? Because this is not how a normal person behaves. This is how a deeply insecure, pussy little bitch acts. But that is what we have serving as president of the United States. All right. I'm going to call it a day here, folks. I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. Okay? Not only that, share the content widely, right? We want all this going around. Share it from other progressive creators as well. Don't just share my stuff. Spread the love around. Follow me across social media at Fair and Balanced. Doesn't matter the platform. Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and Blue Sky at Fair and Balanced. Boy, that list is getting shorter. I used to also have Twitter and TikTok in there, but not anymore. Also, tons of great content still coming up throughout the rest of the day. So make sure you stick around, tune into that. I appreciate everybody being here. I will see you again tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Central. Till then, stay warm.